And welcome back to Creatio's Product Battle. I'm your host, Alex Petronenko, Product Evangelist with Creatio. And today we are happy to welcome back Chris Isbell, the Director with Martin Associates. Chris,
Yeah,
welcome back to Product Battle. How are you today?
I'm doing great here in rainy Cincinnati, but happy to be here.
All right. Well, I like your spirit today. Chris, so today we're going to be continuing in our product comparison with Microsoft Dynamics, and the products and the areas of the product that we're actually going to be comparing today are the service side of things, right? The service process automation, service management, and other areas that are related to this part of the front office operations. Uh,
Exactly.
right? Are you ready to do this, Chris?
Hey man, I'm ready to make you look good again.
Well, no, I mean, like, we have to do it as real as possible, right? This is a
Absolutely,
battle. This is a battlefield, right? So,
absolutely.
Chris, let's before we jump into the demonstrations, right? Let's probably just have like a general discussion around the service processes and probably the areas where we believe that our product shine the most.
Sure,
So what would you say is the most, is the strongest part of Microsoft Dynamics when it gets to the service automation in general?
man, that's a really good question. So the the core of the customer service piece for Dynamics is really, at least in the, let's say, the enterprise level, is really around customer engagement and managing any type of support case or issue or interaction that you're going to have with a customer, whether that comes from an email, a phone call, perhaps a portal. Um, there are even additional plugins for kind of like an omni-channel type look. I mean, that's an additional plugin feature that doesn't really come out of the box. But so really, it's interacting with the customer, tracking those, and then you know having a good visibility into those interactions and how that's you know either driving business or affecting customers.
All right. Yeah. Well, I definitely agree that omnichannel is definitely one of the key factors that is going to be affecting the service management, right? Because when it gets to contact center functionality, when it gets to the support functionality, it's all about the speed and efficiency of the agents, right? How fast can they react? How quickly they can actually make decisions, and the tools that are actually going to be supporting that. So
Right.
my personal belief is that, and I have a big history working with contact center features, functionality. I've built a couple of call centers myself before I joined Creatio. So kind of support agents is really my jam, and I know all the pain points of service agents because I worked as one for many years before.
Right.
So today, what I want to do is really focus around two main areas of the service management functionality, right? I want to focus, first of all, on the foundation, on the basis of creating a service management environment, right? And what are the pieces, what are the nuts and bolts that could be used and that actually build this service management environment. And the second area that I want to focus around as well is how exactly the service agents are operating within those environments, right? So what are the
Right.
features that they're using? What should be driving them through the resolution of those cases, even if they're not fully automated, right? Because as we know, these environments are very dynamic. They are very fluid, and very rarely they are highly regulated, right? So a
Right.
perfect case for dynamic case management functionality. So at this point, let's probably start the demo, right? Let's start the product comparisons. And I'm going to ask our broadcast managers to switch to my screen so we can kick it off. Right? Perfect. So first of all, definitely, well, we keep in mind that there's always the analytical component, right? There's always kind of a home page and the starting screen for any work of a user that's using any kind of application for business operations. And definitely in Creatio, we've got a lot of features that help us bring forwards the analytics, the performance of those users and agents when we work within Creatio, right? But because for very first thing that we're going to do here is focus on the foundation for the service management area. Probably the first couple of areas that I wanted to uncover would start with services, right? Because under the services and service area, we really start building all of the types of actions and services that could be provided by our service agents, right? By our first line of support, second line of support, third line of support. And of course, the idea here is for us to be able to define very simple pieces, right? What are our response and resolution time units for this service, right? So basically, how much time do we have to register to react to this request or to this incident that is going to come into this case, right? How much time do we have in order to resolve it? So our commitment to actually making sure that we have provided a solution for this specific type of request, right? And definitely in this case, the working hours and working days could be easily changed to calendar days, hours, and even minutes, right? So we can fine tune those timescales, those time frames to be as precise and as specific as we want them to be. Now, from there, we definitely talk about the service teams, right? We talk about those groups of users that would be normally and usually assigned to this type of service. And the idea here is to use the service team definition in order to quickly assign and route a specific case and request towards this specific group of people, right? So automatically, based on our business rules and process engine, to distribute those cases. And of course, we can take it further. We can assign more specific related services. So what are additional connected services that might be involved? Connection to configuration items that I'm going to be talking about shortly. Definitely who are the users of this service? And in this case, we do talk about a definition of a service agreement, right? So again, our extension and more of an operational side of a contract, right? Where we actually form and complete the areas around the SLAs, OLAs, and UCs. Right now, in this case, definitely because any service agreement might have its own start and end date. It might have a dedicated support level. And of course, it might be linked even to a specific calendar, right? So the idea here is that because we do have, global customers that operate within multiple geographies with customers from different regions, we need to make sure that those global operations are as well supported by global service teams, right, that will be operating within specific regional settings, right? So for instance, the working calendar for US and UK and the rest of the Europe is different, right? We might have different business days across, Middle East, Israel, and other countries. And we want to make sure that those customers will be provided with the service within those regional settings, right? And of course, we can as well provide visibility of how exactly this is influencing our cases, our requests. And of course, under these specific service agreements, we'll have their own recipients, and this can be a specific contact as a B2C kind of support. This could be an account or organization, and even a department if we're talking about the OLA and we're talking about internal ITSM, ITIL provisioning, right? And definitely all the services that are going to be included into this service agreement, just to make sure that we can kind of grouping those together, we're providing this foundational piece, right? And of course, just by the way that it looks, you can see here that a lot of pieces are falling into place where this can be taken a little bit further, right? Because we're talking about ITIL, ITSM functionality that we as well provide. And definitely we as well can include specific configuration items into services as dependent pieces, dependent equipment. This is somewhere where we can provide extensive inventory management functionality, right? And again, if an organization needs to follow ITIL, ITSM processes, we do provide those as part of the foundational basis of Creatio, right? And of course, in this case, the configuration items might have their own kind of, categorization, specialization, inventory numbers, serial numbers, components. Most important thing, since we might as well have a need in displaying the relationships and connections between multiple services, configuration items, and have the ability to predict through our business rules, through our machine learning models, what are the components that might be affected by an equipment malfunction, by a service, such as a mail server going down, and help resolve those critical issues, those critical equipment malfunctions in the nearest time possible.
Interesting.
So, Chris, this is somewhat my initial pitch here, right? Something that I want to start as a discussion around the foundational, on the basis of the service management processes. So at this moment, let's probably switch to your screen. Let's see what Microsoft Dynamics has to offer in terms of services, service agreements, and configuration items.
All right, perfect. So that was very interesting, Alex. So we'll kind of show off a little compare and contrast with what, of course, Dynamics has to offer out of the box.
Well, a little flair here and there when it doesn't hurt.
All right, make it interesting. So let's start. We're kind of in our service management, let's say settings area. And earlier, when you started, you were talking about services and service level agreements and that kind of stuff. So Microsoft has obviously the concept of service level agreements, as well as this concept of entitlements, and they can kind of work together. So let me jump in here to an entitlement. So an entitlement in our system, I just look at one here, is basically a setup and saying, hey, this customer, and you'll see that this entitlement is tied to a particular customer, whether that's a individual or an organization. It's got date ranges, start end dates, it can get renewed, all that fun stuff. So in this entitlement area, kind of similar to, maybe similar-ish to your configuration item, but not exactly. We're saying what type of basically activity or support activity is this for? And are we doing it based on the number? And, kind of some settings around, if it's just creation or an actual resolve of a case, something like that. And you can either limit the channels that get used for this, kind of along that omni-channel line. So if you're talking about, this is, for our customer, every year they get 40 support cases or something. In this case, it's 24. But you can limit it to say, they can only do support cases for, email records, phones, and web, so we don't take them through Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. Or you can leave it kind of a free-for-all. But what you get with an entitlement is the ability to assign that entitlement to a service level agreement. And then any cases created with that entitlement, can be tied to that service level agreement if you want it to.
Okay, so this, I'm sorry, Chris, if I'm going to step in here, but first of all, the very first screen that you kind of shared, again, it kind of brought me this whole feeling and idea of managing your hardware settings and, all the drivers when you're setting up your Windows PC. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, straight away. Some people are used to it. The IT teams they would rather work with a Windows XP rather than a Mac OS or whatsoever. But that's just their perfect something that they're kind of used to. And entitlement is actually an interesting concept here, right? Even though I cannot say that I have encountered this request from any prospect that I've been working with in terms of service functionality over the past 8 years. So very rarely does this kind of functionality requirement kind of comes up, right, and is needed. Of course, some organizations would probably use it. They would probably find a way of utilizing it, right? But definitely, even if we would need to meet this requirement because we have this, service functionality built on top of our local platform, for us to extend it to meet this piece of functionality is really just something that we would do in probably a matter of hours, right?
Right.
But please carry on. And you were saying that the entitlement can be connected to service agreements. So there is a definition of a service agreement, right?
There is a definition of a service agreement, yes. So we'll jump into that real quick. So obviously multiple different levels of service agreement. And similar to what you're talking about, you can tie those agreements to certain business hours. So in our case, working days. Included with that, is calendars. As you mentioned, if you have a support team in the U.S. and a support team in the U.K., you might have different holiday schedules. You can account for that as well based on who's working on that. So you can, manage the same type of thing. But here we're tracking, generally speaking, let's say two types of things in this case for our service level agreement. When did we get our first response on the case, and you set levels for that. So let's say gold level, we need to respond within an hour. Or, how fast does this case need to get resolved? So you're walking through that and defining those things. They get included on the metrics and KPIs so that you can report on those things and see them in dashboards and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so this is somewhat related to the response and resolution time units.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And within each level, you can, define when it's applicable, and then if success happens, what actions am I going to take? Or if it fails, what kind of actions am I going to take? Like send an email, create a task for somebody, let the manager know, maybe escalate it, something like that. So based on each of those kind of items, you can take some actions. It's a little bit, similar to your guys' business process flow, but it's, partially, kind of baked into the system, as well as utilizing the existing workflow infrastructure and potentially Microsoft's Power Automate fund based on your, your CRM level.
Okay, so this is really the SLA, right? But do you also have in Microsoft Dynamics a separate area to define those services, right? And the variety of those that could be applied? Because in our case, right, the service definition holds the response and resolution timeline on its own. And I see that it's kind of like here gritless, right? But do you have the ability to configure those separately as a separate section? And, do you have a reverse view from service to the SLA, to the recipients, to the history of that service?
So the services, let me jump in here. What's the calendar? All right. So the services are kind of their own area. They are not necessarily related to some SLA type things. It's more for scheduling a type of service, like, okay, I need to do a customer on-site visit, so let's schedule it. How long does it take? That kind of stuff. They are not, in this case, a service is not related to an SLA. A SLA is tied to a support case, and whether you need a service on that case is debatable.
Yeah, it's a little different way of managing.
A little different,
right?
It's a different way of managing it. Yep.
Yeah, and of course, from my point of view, this is a little bit of a limitation, right? And this is a little bit of a, narrowing down the options of working for this specific area when we're building this foundational basis. But again, I'm biased, right? I cannot be trusted fully on this judgment based on my history with Creatio and based on how much of a Creatio geek I am personally in this case.
Right. Yeah. No, it is a slightly different model than the Creatio model. So Dynamics has had this this concept of services and service scheduling out there since a very early version, and they've slowly added on all the other features as far as entitlements and service level agreements and routing rules and all that kind of stuff. So that's
Yeah.
kind of why some of that stuff might like a little bit older than some of the others. It's been around for a good long while.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well, in this case, let's probably switch back to my screen and let's continue with some of the, discovery of the features and the functionality that we might have here, right? So in this case, what I would probably mention and what I'll probably continue with is also with the somewhat, important foundational out of the box capability of Creatio, of taking the service management a little bit further and taking it a little bit even to the next level, right? That we provide with our problem, change, and release management features and functionality, right? Because very often we see that even though that those are initially somewhat, specific requirements of certain customers, right, to be able to manage their inventories, to be manage their assets, and define critical bottlenecks and critical malfunctions as problems, and then go through change and release management features that are also highly used in the ITIL world, right? We still see that these pieces of functionality are sometimes applied in other areas of of businesses and operations. And probably the only reason why I'm also kind of bringing those forward, but I'm not going too much in detail, is because I believe that this is not something that Microsoft Dynamics offers as part of the core solution, right? Something that you would get out of the box. Is that right, Chris?
The ITIL, yeah, that is correct. There are, I'm not going to use the word plethora, but there are many different add-ins available in the app marketplace that can help with the ITIL, ITSM type services piece. But out of the box, it's really geared towards, managing, like a customer support team, customer service team and cases and making sure the customer is happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just kind of gives us the whole idea of what would you get with the base subscription, right? What would you get with the most out of the box features that you could get when subscribing with the vendor, right? And their core offerings, their core solutions. But again, a little bit biased and a little bit flair here and there never hurts, right? But but one of the other things and other areas that I wanted to go through here would be probably talking about the queue management functionality, right? And queue settings. Because this is our way of helping the service agents and in the end, helping the end users of being a little bit more efficient, being a little bit more agile in the way that they manage their work, right? Or go through their daily work. So the idea here is that we have this area that allows us to create work lists and work queues based on pretty much any criteria and condition that could be required or is required by our customers. So think about it in the way that straight away out of the box we can think about case management, right? So what are the service requests, incidents that are being generated from different channels, and we'll talk about those in a couple of minutes. But you can create this queue based on your case objects, right? You might have a specific process that is going to be driving this queue. So not necessarily going to be just one way of processing those cases, but you can have a step-by-step guidance, call scripts, any kind of configuration of the process that you can imagine, because this is fully supported by our business process management engine, right? And we have kind of compared those in the past as well. And of course, in this case, you can talk about, how exactly you want to populate this queue, right? There's definitely a way of saying that you want to build this in manually. So let's say you want to, assign some specific records for a random Q&A to do like a post-case resolution, a survey, one-on-one on the phone with the customer, or you could automatically fill it by filtering conditions, right? And in this case, we of course say that this is the way that it is usually used to build this automatically refreshed and repopulated queues, where we are going through the usage of our filtering module that helps us quickly define what are the records that should be filled in here, how exactly we're going to build this queue, right? And one of the things that I like to bring here up is the fact that this is actually the same filtering module that we see and we use across the application, right? This is not something new. This is not a new way of configuring, the work list, but this is consistent functionality, reusable functionality that we're having in the segmentation setup. When we build a marketing campaign, for example, this is what you do when you're actually creating a business process, and really universal across the application, right? And this is, again, what helps our users and admins to have a higher rate of system adoption, because you don't have to learn how to use different settings in different areas of the application, right? But you just reapply your existing knowledge. For me personally, this is a big deal. This is a big thing, right? And of course, in this case, we can as well assign a specific team to this queue. And the idea here, again, is to enable different agents working in different environments, different queues, right? Based on their skill set, based on exactly it would make sense for them to operate within their daily basis, right? So think about first line of support, think about based on specific type of cases, take a specific type of queues, right? And of course, from there, we can jump as well straight away into the queue overview, right? More of a supervisor view, and actually go through the understanding of what are our current views. If we want to look at those records that were already processed, what's the agent view based on the queue, right? Based on the operator or any other filtering conditions that you can assign here. So this is more of a, again, supporting area for the supervisor that are overseeing the service agents, right? To make sure that any kind of record that is included into a queue is processed on time, right? And we can go through additional follow-up and review of those processed items. But let's probably at this moment switch back to your screen and see if there's anything that can match this functionality in Microsoft Dynamics.
Yeah, right. So
no pressure, of course.
No, of course. So let's since we're talking about queues, we'll kind of talk about a dynamic customer support concept of a queue. Let's jump in. You see we have a couple of active queues here in the system. We'll jump into our support one. All right. So
well, at least the UI here is a little bit more modern. So
yeah,
that's a good start. We've got high hopes on this one.
Right. It's the new unified interface from Microsoft Dynamics. All right. So as you can see, we're looking at a support queue. This support queue is tied to an email address. So the system's going to sit here once we set this up, and it will listen for emails coming into the system, especially if you're using, Office 365. And it will listen for those emails and take those emails and convert them to, in this case, an activity that then people can see in the queue and then, take action on, whether they're going to, convert it to a case or an opportunity or, something custom, I guess. But we're kind of rolling with cases right now. So you can see, this queue is related, like I said, to an email address that needs to be, confirmed and verified. So that's kind of the magic out of the box way that we're going to do that. And you can listen to any email message or just stuff, that's already in your system.
All right. So let me just to kind of rephrase and reiterate on this one, right? What you just said is that when we're talking about queue management in Microsoft Dynamics, those are built on emails specifically. Pretty much. Okay, well, this is a very different concept of bringing the work for the agents, right? Because it's kind of limiting and kind of focusing. Well, it's basically the order in the queue of managing your inbox, right? But in the modern world, those the work of the service agents is not only focused on emails, right? We don't just get email requests from customers and cases. Those are coming from different channels of communication, right? This could be a phone call. This could be anything else. So how would you manage a queue that, for example, is generating the cases and requests from a phone call? Is it done in a separate area? Is it done through the same area with some additional add-ons? Like how would that be done?
Really in the system, kind of any activity can be turned into a case, whether that's a phone call, an email, a task, or whatever. Generally speaking, we would just, have a way to take those and manually get added to a queue, or perhaps, with a certain status, we could run a process to put them into a queue so that people could see all those different things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit of tweaking.
I know how exactly I feel about this, right? From Microsoft Dynamics compared to how we manage our queues, but I'm not going to be sour about it. I'm going to just ask our attendees and our viewers to leave your comments to the chat area right now. How do you feel about this comparison in the queue management between Creatio and Microsoft Dynamics? Because for me, this is a big difference in the conceptual approach and how you would actually manage all of your incoming requests and queues, and how would that be actually used by the agents in the end.
I somewhat agree with you. Yeah. So this queue concept with Dynamics has been around for quite a while, and you are able to to get a good view of things, between personal queues and public queues, and then define, kind of similar how you had your queue tied to a business process. We can create record creation and update rules based on that queue, so that if something comes in and it's to a specific queue, it can run a specific either Power Automate flow or kind of old school business process.
Well, I mean,
a little bit to help there.
Yeah, in this case, we're going a little bit more into discussion and a conversational piece here rather than just showing the products, which is totally fine. But for me, saying that Microsoft Dynamics had this functionality for quite some time, this concept for quite some time, it's not really an excuse, because we had our queue definition functionality for many years as well, right? And we just happened to start there in the fact that it was very flexible. Out of the box, you could configure it towards not even, different channels and sources of items being added to the queue, but also the fact that it's built on other business objects of the system, right? If you're using just the service management piece without the sales and marketing functionality, you could say that, okay, I'm going to have a queues for cases. I'm going to have a queues for problems. I'm going to have a queues for releases and changes, right? If you want to incorporate additional roles working within the queue management piece and the more like an end user experience that I'm going to see in just a couple of minutes here. But if we're saying that this is a bundle deployment and instance, right? If we're saying that we're actually extending it to sales and marketing features, this is where you can add lead management through the queues, right? You can have your inside sales and business development representatives going through the queue built on the lead records and have this kind of streamlined approach of managing and converting the leads, right? We can say that, okay, if our customers have a transactional sales type of model, this is where we're building it based on orders, right? And actually drive that process through the queue as well to make sure that we are processing those as soon as possible, right? If we're saying that we need to incorporate even something like a risk management or compliance issues, right? Or application management when we talk about the FSI, this is again a transactional line, transactional type of work where you've got a whole bunch of to-dos in a day, and you need to have a tool that's going to help you manage this. And this is where our queues come into play, right? This is where they help the users be more efficient. So for me, this is foundational. This is something that is pushing my buttons in regards of limiting the our customers or limiting the organizations in the way that they can actually work in the application.
I can tell that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been going on and on about it for like a good 5 minutes here, and I'm sorry. I definitely apologize to all of our viewers here, but this is something that is pushing my buttons.
Yeah. So we can, just to touch on that real briefly before we might want to move on, but we can do, you can use queues for like leads and opportunities, but generally speaking, to do anything else is just a little bit of tweaking, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, let's probably switch to my screen then, right? And let's go through a few more things in the product specifically comparison, right? And what I wanted to do here is definitely compare the way that these queues are then managed by the end users, right? Because I've been ranting about it. I've been very emotional about the limitations under the queues, right? But let's see how exactly the agents do and work within those queues. In this case, definitely we say that there'll be a specific workplace, right, that focuses the agent on a specific area of functionality. And this is where we're talking about agent desktop, right? So this is the homepage for the agents. This is where they are spending most of their day, right? Or whenever they work, between specific items in their queues. Why it is so powerful, why it is so important here is because it really creates this single screen, this single page for them to be a little bit more efficient, right? On the right-hand side, they've got their dashboards, they've got their KPIs that are brought forward. We all remember that those are, again, built with the help of our dashboard functionality, right? So we are transferring the consistent piece of configuring the analytics in different areas of the system, right? This is fully point and click enabled. This is not something that you have to develop through coding, right? Now, definitely because the service teams are focused around the work, we need to somehow still communicate with them, right? We need to post them the most recent changes, updates from the organization. And this is where we've got the enterprise social network, a specific channel actually in the enterprise social network brought forward, right? With their updates, with their recent news. And on the left-hand side, of course, we've got the queues themselves, the way that they're presented. So right now, my user is assigned to only one queue, right? Or one type of queue through the cases. And I can see here so many items that are available for my group of users, right? I'm the only one logged into the system. This is why they are pretty much static, right? But of course, in the same way, we can have multiple queues. We can have different types of jobs and items that need to be processed. And one of the reasons what triggered me when we were talking about the queue management, right, specifically why I was so shocked about the email piece, is that, again, as I mentioned, the work of the agents in this case, when we talk about emails, is focused around inbox management, right? Our idea is to get rid of that concept of inbox management, right? And to enable the organizations of focusing the work of their agents on cases, right? Anytime that there is an incoming email, if it is new, it's going to be converted into a case. If it is related to an existing record of a case of a service request, throughout our matching functionality, it will be linked to that existing case automatically, right? If this is a case that is coming from the website, obviously it's getting converted to a case. If this is a request that is coming from a phone call, it is converted to a case. If it's coming from a social network, from social listening tools, that feedback is converted into a case. Managing your service agents' work through inboxes is an outdated way. It is not efficient. It creates more limitations than it provides flexibility, right? Because the idea here is that you don't have only one single channel for the case generation. You've got multiple channels, right? This might be even just coming from the portal, from a limited kind of type access that is available, in our case, part of the application, right? Or integrated through third-party applications, or even machine-to-machine kind of channel of generation of those cases when we're talking about hardware monitoring. So it should be, if not an entity, then a single entity, then but definitely not an inbox, right? It's not an email. That's just what I wanted to reiterate. And of course, the idea here is that, of course, all of these items in the queue, right? If we're talking about the specific cases, right, they are going to be managed by the agents within one single screen. And this is a case that has been already resolved. I just wanted to kind of again reiterate on the fact here is that this is the end result of everything that will be processed by, case generation functionality, right? This is where we can have straight away the full history of the case life cycle, right? How it was initiated, how it was registered, what were the communications that were done with the customer, what were the feedbacks that were actually collected, right? You can see here the the base feedback management functionality that we provide out of the box, and definitely additional pieces on the case information, right? So what were our terms for registration, response, and resolution time, the first and the actual resolution times. And also, Chris, if you remember that piece where we were configuring the service agreements, right, with the services, with the calendar, with the work, business days, days off. Mm-hmm. This is where you can as well kind of review the details of what was affecting the calculation for this specific case on the deadlines, right? So we can see here that this was registered perhaps on a day off, right? So that the resolution is going to be kicked off and started only from the first business day. That might be Monday or it could be Sunday, depending on the region, right? We can see all of the details here. So it's not just about, having that foundational basis somewhere, right? But it should be available for the agents as well. And of course, this is where we can go through additional details of the case. So subordinate cases, configuration items that might be linked to it, right? All of the activities, all of the emails, all of the calls as well, right? And even the life cycle of the case. So any kind of change on the date ends, on the statuses, on the priority of the assignee or assignee groups are going to be tracked automatically, right? And of course, the idea here is to give this single interface for managing this process, right? Because again, as someone who's been working as a service agent a long time ago, though, I do know that, 40% of case resolution is not going to be done in the application that provides access to those cases, right? There's still going to be multiple different applications that you might need to access. Our goal, our mission as a vendor for service management functionality and service automation functionality is to minimize the constraint that is involved and that is providing, that is included into this need in using third-party applications. If you need to place a call, you should be able to place a call within the application with the CDI panel integration, right? Just from here. If you need to send out an email, you should be able to do it straight away within a single interface without switching to your inbox, and definitely not work with your inboxes and so on and so forth, right? If you need to reach out, if you need to leave a comment for your team, you should be doing it from the same area and not have to switch to Microsoft Teams to like a support channel or a support team group chat that you have here. If you want to leave a message for your customer through the portal access, you should be able to do it without having to navigate between hundreds of applications, right? Or 50 different applications that might be available in your team. Take as much of those that you can and throw them away. Be focused on a single unified workspace that is Creatio or another application that can match this level of omnichannel communication capability and ease of use, right? And be more efficient. Resolve your case a lot faster, reach your KPIs easier, right? And overall be happier with the software that you use on a daily basis, right? Something that is driving your career, that's something that is driving your team. And again, I got a little bit more emotional here that I should be getting. This is my pet peeve, really, but I do get emotional when I get to these things, right? To service agents, to their performance, to their efficiency. But Chris, again, don't want to intimidate you here. Let's see what you've got to offer on this side.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm fighting a good uphill battle here. I guess I'll I'll start briefly. I'll just point out two things. One, you know, I'll jump into queues real quick. I think I maybe did queues a little bit of a disservice in not explaining it so well. So you can tie the queues to an email, but you can assign, other activities or other cases to a queue so that you do have some visibility into there. Just commonly, if it doesn't come from an email address, it just gets manually assigned somehow. And then let's see. No, that's really it. We'll kind of jump into cases here.
Okay.
So I will jump in right into a queue here. So right from a queue, you can, a queue is going to contain either existing cases or some activities that I need to do. So here's some, right from here, I can look at this item that came from a customer and quickly, convert it to these 3 items out of the box. If I needed to, I could enable it on additional orders, but let's just say we're going to make this a case. All right, we'll pick a subject, which is user definable. We'll say it's software. We're going to open the case, and we will quickly convert him right from our support queue into a case. And, similar to Creatio's, process, we can define specific case processes. In this case, we're running one called phone to case, and we're currently in the identify stage. So we can track, what stage those are in. That's entirely customizable, similar to your guys' process, and track different fields. If you recall our other battle, in the various stages, we're basically tracking pieces of information. So we're gonna change our customer here to Martin and Associates, the account. We'll look for our MWA demo contact, and let's say we'll move along to the next stage. Cases, they can be tied to products. We're going to look for our entitlement. Pick our good fun SLA type stuff in here. I don't have that defaulted, which is why I'm working through that. So let me save that real quick, and you can see once I've enabled that SLA, I have some metrics that are getting counted here to track. Oh, I need to respond within the hour. I need to resolve it within 4 hours, and that just continually runs on the case until they'll succeed or not. I do have a similar to your guys' way to track everything. We've got a timeline in here, so you can see, stuff with auto-posted emails. I can easily add any type of activities in here, emails, calls, record everything that I've done, and get a good visual into what's gone on in that case, kind of in a chronological order. I can also see any related cases, any entitlements. If I need to tie any knowledge-based articles, you can see it automatically searches based on my title to help me kind of figure out, let me look up easily, a knowledge-based article and tie that. If I needed to, I could easily kind of attach that and send it to the customer right away. Track additional details around that case, and you can see how the SLA looks. If it came, you're using social stuff, that would get in there, and any child cases as well, or merge cases, knowledge-based articles, and my SLA metrics and how those are doing. Similar to how you were viewing, your SLA and how that was tracking, that gets tracked here as well, to see kind of, when it was met, if it was not met, those kind of things. So once again, it's a pretty strong case management solution. If you had, the kind of what Dynamics calls the omni-channel plugin, that enables you to track things similar to what you were talking about, through, social media channels, even chat bots and that kind of stuff. But that is, I'm showing you the out of the box enterprise stuff. The omni-channel is some additional pieces and configuration to get all that hooked up.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, again, since I've been getting pretty emotional all this hour, right? I'm gonna try to step away from the emotional part of me and be as objective as possible. But definitely, I feel like there are certain, limitations. There are certain constraints that the agents will meet, the organizations will meet working with this tool, just based on, something that I am kind of used to as having as a standard as a flexibility, right? So something that is more native to our application. But again, I'm not going to be a judge to that. I would probably switch now the screen share, go back just to, to video share, and let's actually see what are the votes looking like. How are they looking like, right? How did our viewers rate the products? And currently we've got almost a 74 by 26% breakdown between Creatio and Microsoft Dynamics respectively. Can't say that I am surprised. Really can't say that.
Not with the arena. Nope. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's still, those things are really unexpected, right? The audience can go back and forth between them. But I do appreciate the votes that we've received from the viewers that do appreciate our product and that share the same kind of way of thinking when it gets to the service management functionality. Chris, usually, what we do in the end of these product battles, we dedicate the last couple of minutes to more of a business discussion, right? Would probably like to compare some of the pricing details and info, any kind of additional limitations that could be, involved or hidden costs. Could you share maybe just a few words around how does Microsoft Dynamics service functionality priced? What are the tiers? What are the usual licensing model looking like?
Sure. So, this is on the Dynamics 365 pricing, so I'm not sharing anything illegal here. But out of the box, there's really two levels. There's professional and enterprise, and those are, I think, they are priced per user per month. Currently on the website, I think professional like 65 a user a month, and enterprise is 95 a user a month. But that changes if you have other pieces of the Dynamics 365 landscape, to add on an additional piece, can be significantly less expensive if you've already got some other pieces going on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry to interrupt.
Pieces is extra.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just to, for a comparison point here, the pricing with Creatio service for the Contact Center edition starts at $35 per user per month. The service enterprise goes up to $50 per user per month. Right. Of course, there are some add-ons. There's always some extensions that you could get from our marketplace. The pricing is available there for sure. But even on the base pricing, right, we can see a huge difference, almost twice. The Creatio piece here would be twice as cheaper. Again, my personal opinion is that for a lower price point, you can get a higher benefit. You can get a higher flexibility of the application. Again, not my words, but also something that we've confirmed through the voting of the audience here, right? And this is what it is, Chris.
Yeah, it's a tough price to beat there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all right. I think that we're almost at the top of the hour here. Chris, it was a pleasure having you again at our product battle. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for finding the time. I would like to as well thank to all of the viewers. Thank you for your comments and engagement in the chat area. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and ideas. Would like to announce as well that our next product battle is going to happen in 2 weeks exactly at the same time, and we're going to be battling against Sugar CRM and the core conditional process of lead to cash. Chris, thank you again. Thank you for joining, and hope to have you here soon again.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.